Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for September 14th through 20th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 1 show, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 3 books. First this week we have A Single Man. This one I picked up because there is an adaptation of it, and that's one of the prompts on the Read Queer All Year bingo board. And then this also covers a prompt for Season-a-thon, which I think is basically the same kind of prompt like read something with an adaptation. This book is all about a man named George. He lives in Los Angeles, he's originally from the UK, he teaches English at a university. And this takes place over about 24 hours of his life, literally just in a single day. As we see George getting up and going through his morning ablutions, we learn certain things about him, such as he used to live with a man named Jim, but Jim has now passed away, and they were in fact lovers. Also, this was published in the 60s. So, you know, not everybody in his life would know how attached to Jim he was. As the day goes on, we actually find out there was a little bit of complication to do with his relationship with Jim leading up to his death as well. And the day goes from there. We definitely learn a lot of things about how he feels about certain types of politician, or his best friend, or students in his class. And overall this book just kind of feels like a thought experiment, like what would it be like to record this one specific day in this man's life. This is the first book I've read by this author, but I've actually enjoyed something that has been adapted from his work before many, many times, and that's Cabaret. Turns out that Cabaret started out as short stories about people like Sally Bowles, etc. So I'm eventually going to have to read that source material because I am a very big fan of the musical Cabaret. The other book I read with my eyeballs is called Mystery Magnet. This is the first in a mystery series, and it's about this guy named Dash who used to live on the east coast of the States and is driven all the way to the west coast of the States to go to this job interview for this woman named Vivian. She is a very famous novelist, not only because she writes great mysteries, but also because she actually solved a true crime case back in the day. We meet him as he's interviewing for the job to become her personal assistant, which means living in this giant manor on the Oregon coast. Unfortunately, in less than 24 hours, tragedy strikes and he's going to have to solve a murder unless he wants to go down for it. This was kind of campy and fun. It was also on the short side, so it was really easy to get through in just one single day. But that being said, it also packs an emotional punch because Dash is going through some things. For example, his parents are also mystery writers. He's trying to be a mystery writer, but he can't really seem to get anything down on the page. And he feels like a constant disappointment to them, and they don't really seem to actually care all that much about his well-being. In addition, we know that one of the reasons he left the East Coast is because he recently broke up with a boyfriend, and we kind of don't know exactly what the story is about that until partway through this book. Plus, you know, he's meeting all these new people and he doesn't know who in this very small town could have done the thing that he's going to get accused of if he doesn't solve the mystery. Like I said, this is the first in the series and I think I'm going to have to continue the series at some point. I also wanted to mention that this is one of the 30 books on the Queer Detectives on the Case quest over on Pagebound, which was created by me. The Quest, not Pagebound. I definitely did not code this website. If you haven't heard me talk about Pagebound before, it's a Goodreads replacement that's kind of like Reddit and Goodreads had a baby, in that every single book is its own forum, so you can talk about every single book in its own little place, but then there's also forums to talk about more generalized topics. You can also make lists, you can make personal shelves, and you can do these things called quests, which means if you read certain books that are on these quest lists, and you read a certain amount of them, you get badges. And I love gamification. I'm a top contributor on this website, which means I have the ability to make quests. In fact, just to let you know how much I really love this site, I've only been using it since June. It opened in the fall of 2024, and I have the most points on the entire website, so that's a lot. Have I mentioned I love gamification? Obviously. So if you're looking for a really cute way to track your reading, I can definitely recommend, and if you want to do this quest, also definitely recommend doing that because it's a lot of fun. On for the show I watched, and for the first time in forever, it wasn't Silent Witness because, as I said last week, I finished up until what's available on BritBox. So instead, I had to pick something else from BritBox, and I watched the limited series that only has 3 episodes called The Barking Murders. This is based on a true crime case, and through these episodes we get to know these victims that eventually end up murdered by the one same guy, who is played by Stephen Merchant. Which also helps me remember his name because the first name of this actual serial killer is also Stephen, but his last name is Port. Turns out this gay man in Barking Barking, which is in the UK, was just killing people that he had over for casual sex. And it took the police a really long time to actually figure this out, even though a lot of people were like, I don't know how to feel about that guy, I think it might be that guy. Or, you know, all of these murders of like younger guys in the same area might be connected, and the police are like, nah, I don't think so. Which is obviously incredibly frustrating for the families, which you definitely see in this series. Like I said, it is a dramatization of actual events, and I actually had tears at points. The movie I watched gave me completely different types of tears. They were tears of laughter, because I watched the new Naked Gun movie. After years of people on the internet going, wouldn't it be really funny if instead of Leslie Nielsen, we had Liam Neeson doing these very schlocky comedy movies? And then it happened, and it was really funny. This follows a character with the same name as the original movie, except for he is the son of Leslie Nielsen, so you actually see like him talking to his dad's photo at one point. And that scene was funny for a couple of different reasons, which I'll just let you watch yourself. But I also spent this whole movie going, you know, the woman that they've chosen to be the female love interest, you would think this would have been a famous person. Like, I don't know this woman at all. And then I realized when the credits happened, it was Pamela Anderson, who I just haven't seen in anything for 30 years, hence why I didn't recognize her. So, you know, residents of Vancouver Island represent, because, you know, she's from my island. She actually went to my high school, definitely not at the same time as me though. Regardless, both of these lead actors did an amazing job, especially because I don't think I've really seen Liam in like a funny role before. I've seen him do like little bits of comedy throughout different roles, but I've never seen him do like this type of comedy, which is just kind of stupid comedy. And there are some sequences in here that go in very interesting directions. So if you want to talk about the whole montage of their vacation, please do, because I would love to hear what you thought about it. On to the books I listened to this week. The first one was Canto Contigo. This one is from the point of view of a high school student who is very into mariachi. In fact, he kind of heads this mariachi group that has won at this extravaganza every year since he's been the head of it. He also feels like not only do they have to win overall group, he has to win lead vocalist every year for his grandfather who actually taught him the art. This is also an incredibly emotionally fraught time for him because his grandfather is in the hospital because he has Parkinson's and he's not doing super well. So he's told his grandfather, I'm going to go to the competition, I'm going to win for you, I'm going to come back, I'm going to show you the trophy. So the night before the competition, he's out partying with his friends who've gone to this other party in this hotel that they're staying at for the competition, and he meets this really cute boy. And you know, things are going really, really well, but then eventually they decide to slow down and they didn't exchange numbers or Instagrams or anything like that. So he doesn't exactly know how to get in contact with him, and then unfortunately after the competition, his life gets really complicated. After that, we flash forward about 6 months and we find out that he's going to have to switch high schools for his senior year, which really sucks, not only because he's leaving friends and family behind to move to a completely different place for his dad's job, but now he's going to have to join the second place mariachi ensemble, and that just doesn't seem fair because he needs to win for his grandfather. But when he shows up to this completely different school, I think you can tell who he's going to run into. I don't want to give you more details than that because I don't want it to just tell you the whole plot of this and what the whole big crux of this power dynamic is, but this was fantastic. I really loved seeing a bunch of different really great representation in this. I really wanted to like go see these performances that were described on page because it just sounded like such fantastic art. Needless to say, I can highly recommend this one. The second audiobook I listened to this week is Disturbing the Dead, which is the third in the A Rip Through Time series by Kelly Armstrong. This one is the series where this woman who is from Vancouver is in Edinburgh visiting her ailing grandmother. She goes for a run, and then all of a sudden she wakes up in the body of a housemaid 150 years before her time. Obviously, I can't give you too many details about what happened in the first book and the second book because I don't want to ruin anything for you because I really want you to read them because I really love this series. But some details I can give you in this third book. This third book has a lot to do with the craze that the British Empire went through, which, you know, was taking stuff from Egypt and deciding they could just do things like unwrap mummies. Because it's not like those used to be people or anything, right? It turns out our cast of characters is invited to a mummy unwrapping, and our main character doesn't really want to go because she's like, this isn't exactly ethical. And the guy she works for doesn't really want to go because he's also like, this isn't really ethical. And also he is a man of color, so he feels even more strongly about how this isn't great. However, his sister has invited them. His other sister probably wants to go because she doesn't really see the problem in it. And if he goes, he can at least ensure their there's some respect paid to this body. But of course, something at this event goes terribly awry and then they have to solve a murder. I really, really love this series. I think the whole conceit of it is really interesting. There's also interesting things that happen in this book that have to do with the whole, hey, why am I 150 years in the past thing? And overall, I just think you should read it so that I have somebody to talk to about it. The third audiobook I listened to this week is Our Share of Night. This is a 27-hour audiobook, which is just really long, and I realized that my library hold was going to expire pretty soon, so I had to rocket through it. This one, for the most part, takes place in Argentina between the 1960s and the 1980s. As you can tell from these hand motions, we kind of jump around in time a little bit, but we start out following this guy named Juan. He has these very specific powers that are greatly important to this blood cult that he's kind of the medium for, which means the cult doesn't want him to get away from them, and also they are willing to kill to do certain things to keep him in line. And he's had a heart condition basically all his life, which keeps him very close to death, which keeps him being able to be this medium. But also means after they do ceremonies, he spends a lot of time in hospital recuperating. As we come to meet him, we know he has a young son. He also had a wife, but she is passed, and he's pretty sure the Order had something to do with that, but he hasn't proven it yet. And this book is told following multiple characters. So we start out with Juan, but then eventually we go off to a different character, and then we'll go off to a different character, and we'll get this context from over here, and then we'll get different context from over here, and it all sort of comes together, and you kind of do need some of that context to figure out why the ending makes sense. But also, it was a 27-hour audiobook, which means the page count was this. I'm just gonna look it up for you. And I don't think it needed to be that many pages, personally. I enjoyed my time with it, but you would think that all of my questions would be answered about this cult, and they really weren't, which is definitely interesting given all of the amount of page time we had. I also had to laugh at one point because I remembered back to something that had been mentioned in a completely different section of the book, and then what was being portrayed on page at that exact moment when I realized what was going on. And I had to laugh because without actually fully naming this famous person from history, one of the characters was definitely sleeping with him, and it's a detail you would only pick up if you were really paying attention, which I thought was kind of funny, actually. In any case, overall, enjoyed it. It could have been shorter, though. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!